Hey, welcome to another episode of Getting Certified. Hey, Tony, how are you doing?
I'm doing good. How you doing today, Gene?
Good, good. So, I don't think you were with us last week, were you? When Mark and I talked about the first half of experiential team learning. That last week, Mark, we talked about the first half of experiential team learning, right?
I think you're on mute, Mark.
Yeah, that sounded very, very exciting on my side, just to let you know. Yeah, we
It
did
looked
module
exciting.
four. We did module four last week, and now we're doing module five of the same competency domain. So
Yeah, of the modules 4 and 5
yeah,
of the
facilitate
curriculum,
team
which is
learning.
the
Yeah.
first and second half of this experiential team learning um, competency domain, right? And so last week we
Mhm.
talked about analyze experiential team learning, right? And then
Mhm.
we talked about what was the next one? Orient on team goals. Is that was or what was it?
Yeah. So
What was the
we
second leader task that we covered last week? Orient
uh
on team goals, right? And so
yeah,
this week,
on team goals.
yep, this week picking up with leader task number 3, which is encourage constructive
Dialogue.
dialogue, right? And that's
Correct.
again these competency domains and leader tasks came out of the job task analysis that we conducted back in 2018, 2019, where we asked leaders in a variety of industries what they were doing day in and day out to build not just teams, but build resilient teams that
Correct.
can work through adversity, overcome challenges, bounce back, uh, and still get the work done. And then more importantly, get better and better at what they do. So
Right.
turning adversity into an opportunity to learn and get better, right? And so that's where these competency domains and leader tasks come from. And the third leader task in the experiential team learning competency domain is encourage constructive dialogue, right? Without constructive dialogue, none of this team learning stuff, none of this getting around the experiential learning cycle together as a team is going to happen, right, Mark?
No, not at all whatsoever.
So let's
So
talk about. So what you've taught this a few times, and
mhm.
more than a few times. And Tony, you've done more than a few exams with people earning their certification. So Mark, let's go to you first. Kind of tell me what what are we talking about? I mean, why is constructive dialogue important in your mind, particularly as it relates to experiential team learning and teams learning from their experience, getting better and better?
Yeah, I think the constructive dialogue is actually the entire framework in this action. And what I mean by that is you can't have different groups and teams coming together to build or construct or deliver something for clients or what have you. Everything's not gonna work perfect. Okay, there's going to be challenges, there's going to be things, areas, and the constructive dialogue has to be present amongst the whole team for them to take that shared experience. And perhaps in this one section we had problems, we all need to discuss that and think about what could we do different, how can we do it better. And when you're pointing out things, it's not to attack anyone. It's we could all agree that was bad, could we not? And people go, yeah, it didn't go so well. Okay, let's put our heads together, let's start having it's not about judging people and pointing the fingers. It's about, look, it didn't go well for the whole team because we're all together in one team. Doesn't matter what section you had in this action or this delivery of services, it didn't work. What could we do different? And we put our heads together and start sharing ideas on things that can make it more effective for our clients and for delivery and for our own team. So
Yeah. And Tony, when you've done plenty of exams, what are folks telling you when they're relating their experience with this particular leader task, their experience with encouraging constructive dialogue in the workplace? What are they saying about this idea of psychological safety? Fancy term, right? Psychological safety. What are folks telling you about that?
Yeah, so that's probably one of the biggest aspects, right? Because we want to encourage people to talk, right? That's encourage constructive dialogue.
mhm.
We're trying to build conversation, but that doesn't happen if you don't have that foundation, which is the psychological safety, right? People need to feel safe in order to speak their thoughts, their opinions, their ideas. If they feel that they're going to get looked down upon or get ridiculed, or there's going to be some negative repercussion, if they speak up, then they can't talk, right? And then you can't build that dialogue, right? There's no conversation to be had if people are afraid to speak. So the most important thing in this aspect here is that psychological safety. If you want people to talk, you have to get them to feel safe, right? This is when we're talking about leader tasks. This is specific for the leader. The leader sets the tone for the environment, right? The leader has to create that positive environment, that positive climate, right? And that climate is one of those things that helps encourage the constructive dialogue. If people are relaxed and they know that, hey, we can have a conversation, we can even have, some that creative abrasion. We can go back and forth. We can disagree. That healthy conflict. But if you don't have that psychological safety, that stuff does not occur. And that's what a lot of people talk about, is they can't seem to have teams that speak up because they're in fear that there is going to be some kind of negative connotation associated with them speaking up.
Yeah. And if you've ever heard somebody say during these constructive dialogue sessions, when you're in conversation about how to make something better, how to improve it, how to solve a problem, how to overcome a challenge, and someone says, hey, listen, I'm just thinking out of the box here, so bear with me. What we might be getting ready to hear is some adaptive thinking, right, Mark?
Yes, absolutely. And this is where that psychological safety, it promotes adaptive thinking. So to Dr. Tony's point, if the leader is taking that lead on that and people go, okay, let's kind of go for, let's shoot for the moon here. So adaptive thinking, obviously, we're recognizing unexpected situations, quickly considering various possible responses and making appropriate decisions. And we're not judging, we're going, let's think that over. That's the kind of climate that you need within your team to be successful.
Yep. And advocacy, Dr. Tony, I mean, if somebody has a good idea on the team, and maybe it's a psychologically safe environment, but they're just not willing to advocate. They don't want to, it's more than just, you have to, it's almost being argumentative sometimes, right? It's advocating for your point. And if you've ever heard somebody say, listen, you're not understanding maybe I'm not making myself clear. Let me explain this a little better. I don't think you're getting my point. You're missing it here, right? Advocacy is important, right, Tony, in constructive dialogue.
Yeah, right. When we talk about advocacy, we're talking about, promoting, supporting, defending an idea, right? And you need to be able to communicate, right? Advocating, there's some marketing. This is sales and marketing right here, right? You have to sell your idea, right? I have an idea, or this is what I think. You have to sell it. And in order to do that, you have to understand how to communicate. We talk about, leaders have to be able to communicate. And that's something that you need to actually instill in your team as well. All right. Because when somebody has an idea, if they can't, properly connect it, it's not going to hold any weight, or it's not going to go anywhere. Right. But in the other sense, if you have an idea that you're trying to pass up, you have to communicate it effectively, because that's that constructive dialogue, right? I'm not going to blindly support an idea that's, hey, yeah, that sounds good. No, you have to tell me why it's good, right? You're the one that's experiencing things, right? You have to tell me why that's a good idea, and you have to effectively convey that to me, or else I can't promote that. I can't advocate for it if you can't effectively communicate. We have to have that constructive dialogue that sells me on your idea, and then I can advocate for it.
Right. And constructive dialogue can be quite contentious sometimes, right? I remember coming out of a meeting one time, and somebody told me, they said, oh boy, it sounded like, cats and dogs going after each other in there. And I said, oh yeah, it was a great meeting. And they thought I was crazy, right? But there was there was a lot of adaptive thinking and advocacy going on in there. And it's not, it doesn't mean kumbaya, right? It means solving problems, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Go ahead, Tony.
Yeah, teams that are creative and that are very good at problem solving, They have a lot of that. When you read about that, there's that, as I mentioned earlier, there's that creative abrasion, right? All these ideas are crashing against each other. And a lot of time, they're counter to each other. But you need all that diverse perspective in order to get the best solution, to come to the best solution that you're going to implement, right? We talked about that action phase. We go through that. We have that reflecting and decision making, right? We talk about that collective decision making. That all comes together. That's all part of it, right? Everybody's got to voice their opinion, and then we are able to come to the best possible solution to solve the problem. And it may sound like arguing, but that's constructive dialogue, right? That's where all the good stuff happens, right? But nobody's being disrespectful, right? We're all still understanding, hey, we're all in the same team, right? We all want the best, but everybody's throwing everything out there. But if it wasn't a safe environment, that wouldn't happen. So again, we have to have that safe environment where people feel free to speak up and go against each other and provide their diverse perspectives and viewpoints.
Absolutely. And Mark, explicit knowledge and tacit knowledge, right? Two different things. And constructive dialogue is how, is a great way to surface tacit knowledge, right? Things that just aren't, that are in somebody's, there's what the book says, there's what the manual says, and then there's what's inside of the head of somebody that's been doing it for some time. And whenever you hear somebody say, yeah, I got you, but let me tell you how this really works. Or let me, I know what in college, you learn a lot of explicit knowledge. In your first year on the job, you gain a lot of tacit knowledge because you're putting all of that explicit knowledge to work. And when it comes into contact with the real world and the real workplace, all of the nuance comes out, right? So would you agree the best way to surface tacit knowledge is through constructive dialogue?
Yeah, it's actually one of the main ways, quite frankly. I mean, if you have somebody who is a little bit more aggressive with sharing their ideas, you're probably okay. But historically, people go, well, no one's mentioned that, but I've dealt with that for a number of years. No one's bringing that up. Should I bring that up? Yeah, if I'm in where I feel psychologically safe in order to have these conversations, it's amazing what people will come up with. Yeah, this sounds similar to something I did like 2 years ago. We had the same problem, and here's what we did. And everybody looks at each other and goes, where did that come from? I just did it like a couple of years ago with another company. And they're like, holy crap, we've never encountered that. Let's talk about that. And that's how it comes to the surface. But when you're shutting people off and cutting them off and no one gets to speak, it's just, shut up and I'll tell you when you can talk. No, that's not what we're doing here. We want all these ideas to come out because we don't know what right looks like, because we know what we have is not right, but we don't have another suggestion. So let's get them all on the table and figure out what's right.
Right. And this is why when, companies, organizations lose experienced people, when somebody with a lot of experience moves on to another job or retires, and people say, oh my goodness, all the corporate knowledge is just walking out the door right there.
Right.
That's what they mean. There's, something, it's just, you can't tell, hey, Tony, Brett, you've been running this thing for 5 years. If you could spend the weekend writing down everything for your replacement, that would be wonderful.
Good luck on that.
That simply can't happen. So SOPs and rules and regulations and manuals are all a starting point, and everybody should know what's written down, what's documented. They should know it cold, but that's all a starting point, right, for experience and tacit knowledge, right? So that's so encourage constructive dialogue, super important for the to get around this experiential learning cycle, which is teams learning from their experience in the workplace. Constructive dialogue important at all stages of that. Important during the experiencing stage. That you're talking about things as they're happening. Obviously important in the reflection stage where you bring a team together to specifically address issues in hopes of making decisions. Important in the deciding phase, constructive dialogue, and even the acting phase, where often the people implementing changes are not the same people that made the decision to implement the change.
Right.
And constructive dialogue with those people is going to be important, particularly for helping them build new mental models, which just happens to be leader task number 4, right? So if we scroll
That's
up,
crazy. Look at that.
that's crazy, right? Leader task number 4 is build new mental models. So, here's the this is the paradox in the workplace, is that we spend a lot of time getting everyone on the same sheet of music, right? With SOPs and ways of doing things, and working together as a team, and becoming a well-oiled machine, and all of these things. We spend a lot of time doing that, knowing full well that if there's an opportunity to change, to improve, which requires a change, which may require building new mental models because we're not doing things the same way anymore.
Right.
It's quite the paradox. So we spend a lot of time getting everybody on the same sheet of music, knowing full well that we may pick a new song at any given time, right? Football teams learn the playbook, in a particular year, knowing full well that the playbook the next year is going to be different. There are going to be changes in the off season because it's a new team, different players playing different, you're playing different teams this year. And so there's going to be changes. And so football players work really hard to understand the playbook and their part in each play. They build these collective mental models, knowing full well that the life expectancy of any of the playbook is a year at best, right, Tony? So Tony, when you're doing exams for people, and they're talking about their experience building new mental models, what is it you're looking for about why mental models are, collective mental models are important for teams?
Well, it's important because everybody has to be on the same page, right? Every mental models is the way we understand something, right? We experience something, and that leads to the way we shape our understanding of it. So everybody experiences things differently, right? So everybody's mental models are going to be a little different. In the aspect that you just mentioned, football, let's look at it that. Somebody could start off and they could be playing on a football team, and now we run the ball. We smash mouth football, right? So they think football, their mental model is, hey, we're going to run the ball, the 3 yards in a cloud of dust that you always hear. Somebody else could have a mental model of football is, look, we're doing the run and shoot, right? We're throwing the ball all the time, right? So their mental models of how an offense works are completely different. So if those two people eventually get traded and they're on a new team, they're going to understand how offense works in two completely different ways. So they need to then build a shared mental model, right? If they want to come together as a team, right? One guy can't be thinking we're just going to do this. It's done this way. The other guy can't be thinking this is the only way it's done. No, they need to come together and build a shared mental model so they are on the same page and understand how this is going to work. How is this team going to come together to solve a problem? If everybody's looking at something from a different viewpoint, they're not going to be able to get the job done, the mission done, the task done, complete the goal, because their mental models are completely different. They need to build that shared mental model.
Yeah, but Mark, the building new mental models is important, right? Because with change comes a requirement to build new mental models around it. Right. And you hear folks talking all the time about most change initiatives fail. They cite different research and so forth. And the fact is, the change fails when teams are unable to build new mental models in support of that change. It's really that simple. If people can't get there, if people can't get together, back on the same sheet of music with the new way of doing things and build new mental models, then the change is not going to be successful, right? And this is, I know the times you've taught the course and helped other instructors teach the course. This is quite a challenge in some workplaces, right? Especially dynamic workplaces where there's lots of change, right?
Right. Yeah. It makes it very difficult because it's about the comfort zone, right? So I know what I know. Do not confuse me with facts. Okay. I've been doing it this way for 15 years. It works fine. Okay. Well, as technologies, as needs, as dimensions, design changes, you have to change with the times, whether you like it or not. And the truth is that this is where people need to be. They need to understand that your shared mental models are not necessarily identical. Okay. But just realize that this is about change, improvements, because it's just like the old thing that we used to talk about, if you talk about like places like Sears and Roebuck, tell me where they're at today, because they didn't want to change. They what we've been leading the whole, market, right, until things changed. And then the rest of the world changed and you did not. What did you do? You got left behind. It's real simple. Tell me where you can find the next Blockbuster. You won't find it. Why? Because it changed, but they stayed and stuffed their feet in the ground and said, no, we've been leading the pack. It cost them, right? That's the reality of what happens in every organization, every team, that things improve. There's new technologies that come out all the time, and folks have to do it. And the thing is that people say, these new mental models, it requires change. But a lot of times people say, well, you just want me to be some just listening guy and I got to get along with everybody. No, it doesn't mean that. Tony's point, he said a moment ago, I see, we throw the ball all the time. I see we run the ball all the time. But together we start saying, well, there's value in that. And there's certainly value in that. But we all come together and say, well, what's going to work at the right time? How do we get better at this? And that's really, at the end of the day, what it's about. So,
yeah, we say that work is a team sport.
yes.
That was an assumption going into the job task analysis that we did in 2018, 2019. Work is a team sport, and the best managers are like coaches in the workplace. Right. They coach teams to get the work done. They coach teams to get better and better at what they do. And if you think about a coach trying to teach a team, say it's a high school basketball coach trying to teach a team, the basketball team, a new play, right? That new play, this is where the coaching comes in, right? That new play is going to be difficult to do the first time around, and folks are going to make mistakes, and they're not going to be used to it, and they're going to fall back on old habits and old mental models, and it's very difficult, right? And this is why change is difficult. And this, for the same reason, it's difficult to teach a basketball team a new play. It's difficult to teach a work team in the workplace a new play, if you will, because it's different. You have to run it a number of times. There's a constructive dialogue comes back into play here, right? You have to orienting on team goals. Why are we even changing the play? Right. And you have to run that play enough times until eventually it becomes second nature. A few games later with the basketball team, they're running the play like they've been running it all their lives, right? Because they've built new mental models around what their particular role is inside of the teams, what the team is doing collectively. And so,
I call it the new normal. It's the new normal.
The new normal. And this is what's hard about change. It does. You can't just, the coach can't throw it up on the whiteboard, X's and O's, show it to them one time and think it's going to look great. No, the first time out. That's a ridiculous assumption, and that is a ridiculous assumption in the workplace too. When things change, when you make improvements, it's going to take some time, and you're going to need to coach. This is a workplace coaching function. That's why our middle certification for experienced managers is called RBLP Coach, because you're coaching teams to get the work done, which is changing all of the time. Nobody is getting the work done now the way they were getting the work done 10 years ago. And that is a process of coaching. And Tony, now these are some fancy terms here: single loop learning and double loop learning. Not important that people remember that exactly, but they do need to know the difference between the two. So what are you looking for, Tony, when you're grading exams, doing the oral certification exams? What are you looking for people
I like to know that they can distinguish the two. I said, we don't need a regurgitation of exactly the RBLP curriculum definition. How do you apply this, right? Show me that you understand this from an application. And when you can say, here's an example of a single loop learning, here's double loop learning, and you can differentiate them, that's the big ticket, right? When we're looking at it, tying to mental models, right? Single loop learning is really you're learning within that existing mental model that you have. No big changes going on. You're working within that construct. You're working within your understanding of something. Whereas at double loop learning, you're building a new mental model. That's where that double loop learning comes in, is that there's a new approach. You've challenged that construct that you've had. You've challenged your understanding, and now you've learned from a different perspective. And that's kind of what I look for in the explanations and the examples between the single and double loop learning.
Yeah. So single loop learning is we're gonna make a slight change to the play that we're all used to running, and double loop learning is, hey, gather around. This is a whole new play.
Yeah.
Because double loop learning typically requires the questioning of underlying assumptions. You quit trying to fix the old play eventually, and you say, listen, maybe this isn't even the type of offense that we should be running anymore. And now that we've questioned that underlying assumption, we're going to start over, and we're going to build some whole brand new plays, right? Yeah. There are so many parallels between team sports and what teams get done in the workplace, right? Work is a team sport. I haven't found many people, if any, that disagree with that. Teams get the work of America done. They do it together, and the teams that the teams that can work their way around the experiential team learning cycle, learn from their experience, and get better and better at what they do, are the teams that are the most productive, and they're the teams that win, right?
Yeah.
Yep. So go ahead, Mark.
Yeah, I was going to throw something out, and the diagram that's in there, Tony's referring to, is, it's kind of funny between single and double loop learning, and I think he did a great job with it. We're tweaking things. A current thing, we're making a little adjustment. We're not overhauling the whole thing. It's still going to look similar, but we're tweaking a bit. And then when we go to double loop, we're all going all the way back to the assumptions of belief. And what I love about this chart, it says, here's a question. Why do we do it this way again? And everybody goes, I don't know. It's just the way we've always done it. Is it efficient? No, it's really not. But we just keep doing it that way. Okay. Let's stop the crazy. Let's all put our heads together, because we've got to figure out what do we need to do. And all of a sudden, people start realizing, guess what? I'm not sure. Bob was here like 20 years ago, and that's what he built, and I guess that's what we do. But it's okay to say, that stinks. That doesn't even really work very well. Let's trash that. Let's start over. How can we make it better? And that's where you see teams really come together and go, yeah, man, that's crazy as all get out.
Yep.
It's just counterproductive every time I try to use this process. Yeah, it takes me longer than ever. And they find it a more efficient way, and they go, guess what? We just fixed it. It's great.
You'll remember some double loop learning we did back in 2018 and 2019 was that, listen, certification exams, project management, human resources, and so forth. Certification exams are written exams. They're true, false, multiple choice. They used to be done with paper and pencil. Now they're done on a computer. Pick A, B, C, or D. That's how certification exams work. And you'll remember, as we were looking at that, we started questioning those assumptions and beliefs. Is that really the only way? Is that really the only way? Is that the most effective way? Is that the way that's going to work to assess leader knowledge and skills and experience? That was when you do double loop learning, sometimes you throw the baby out with the bathwater, right?
We're starting over.
We're starting over, and we're going to do something completely new, which requires folks to build new mental models around this new way of doing things. So this, I tell you, that's this experiential team learning, this idea of, once people understand how teams learn from their experience, I believe it's really what separates what makes somebody an experienced manager. You're experienced when you understand how this process works, and you're able to coach teams through this process to get better and better at what they do, to improve incrementally, to innovate as needed, to lots of single loop and some double loop learning along the way, getting better and better at what you do to get the work done for whatever organization that you're a part of, right? And this is I believe this competency domain and modules 4 and 5 from the certification prep training are the most powerful parts of the certification. And once people understand, once you get your arms around this idea, you become quite. This is what separates managers from leaders. Managers just get the work done, right? Leaders not only get the work done, but they help teams get better and better and better at what they do, so that they can stay successful for the long term. And then that's what feeds organizational learning, right? This team learning from experience is what feeds organizational learning. It's the foundation. And indeed, that's what we're going to be talking about next week, which is the competency domain organizational learning that we'll talk about the next time. The next time we do this, which I think we are going to be live next week to do that. Any saved rounds, Tony, about these two competency domains, constructive dialogue and building new mental models?
Yeah, I would say, since you've mentioned, that these are the areas, that really separate the good managers, I would say that is true, and that these are probably the questions that most people get wrong on the test. Is these slides about mental models and single and double loop learning. So when you go through the curriculum, make sure that you really understand this, and that you really have some experiences that align with it, that show that application of it. Make sure you understand these concepts and the application of them.
Yep. And that's the key, right? Is being able to share your experience with these concepts in the real world, a real world. I mean, that's how we evaluate people, right? Tell me your experience with building new mental models, with single loop and double loop learning, with that. They need to be able to provide provide an example of that in real time, right? And that's what we say to people. An 11th grader could pass a lot of the certification exams out there if they've got the study material. They could pass the human resources exam or the project management exam or what have you. A smart 11th grader in chemistry that does well in chemistry would be able to pass those, because you're reading the explicit knowledge in black and white in the study guide, and then you have to be able to pick from a lineup A, B, C, or D, true or false, as being the most correct answer, right? With our oral certification exams, you have to tell us your experience doing these things, right? And so an 11th grader cannot pass one of our exams because they simply don't have the work experience to be able to relate their experience to these leader tasks and concepts. So for people that are preparing, it's all about understanding your experience, and that's what the certification prep training does. It helps you understand these leader tasks and supporting concepts through your real lived leader follower experience, and giving you an opportunity to talk about that during prep training, so that when you get to the oral examination, you can explain each one of these concepts through your own experience, right? We love it when somebody gets to the point where they say, for example, that's what we're looking for, right, Tony?
That's right. What they need to do is they need to relay their tacit knowledge to us through a constructive dialogue.
There you go. There you go. Spot on.
That's exactly it, right? That's what we're uncovering, is the tacit. I mean, if we ask somebody to write essays, they would never get that. They would never get that done, right? No, just tell us your experience, and we'll follow. We'll probe with good questions that help you get all that tacit knowledge out. Okay. So next week we're going to do support organizational learning, which the leader's role is to support organizational learning.
Right.
That's something that senior managers, senior leaders do. So I'm looking forward to that one. We'll be back next week on Tuesday, 3 p.m. on the East Coast, noon on the West Coast, 1 p.m. in beautiful Rapid City, South Dakota, and 2 p.m. in Panama City, Florida, which is where Emilio is at, right?
There
Emilio?
you go.
Panama City, Florida. So we'll see everybody next week. Thanks for joining us. Yep. If you missed this, you can find all of these episodes on our YouTube channel, RBLP Leadership Certifications YouTube channel. You'll also find them on Spotify with video, and you'll find them on iHeartRadio without the video, hence radio.
Yeah, there you go.
Right. Which I've been told I have this is an old joke, right? I've been told I have a face for radio. Yeah, my wife thinks she's funny. Anyways, so good to see you, Mark. Good to see you, Tony.
Yes, sir.
And thanks as always, Emilio, and we'll be back next week. All right, thank you. Have a good week, everybody.
Everybody.
Bye.
RBLP. Learn more, lead better.